Evolution is a powerful scientific theory that explains the unity and diversity of life on Earth. At its core lies natural selection, a mechanism by which populations adapt to their environments over time. A key aspect of natural selection is that it produces changes in populations, not in individuals. Today, we'll explore how this process works, and why it operates at the population level. Let's start with the fundamentals. A population is a group of organisms of the same species living in a specific area. Within any population, individuals vary in their traits due to differences in their genetic makeup. These traits can include physical characteristics such as fur color or beak shape, as well as physiological or behavioral traits. The process of natural selection begins with this variation. Not all individuals in a population are equally likely to survive and reproduce. Those with traits better suited to their environment, such as camouflage to avoid predators or resistance to a disease, are more likely to survive and pass on their advantageous traits to the next generation. This is often summarized as survival of the fittest, where fitness refers to an organism's ability to survive and reproduce. It's important to note that natural selection acts on individuals, but its effects are seen in populations. Here's why. While an individual may survive or reproduce more successfully because of its traits, these traits are already part of that individual's genetic makeup. Natural selection doesn't change the individual. Instead, it changes the frequency of traits in the population over time. Imagine a population of beetles with varying shell colors. Some are green, and others are brown. If the beetles live in a forest with predominantly brown soil, the brown beetles are less likely to be seen by predators, giving them a survival advantage. Over generations, the population will have a higher proportion of brown beetles because they are more likely to survive and reproduce. This is a change in the population's genetic makeup, not in the individual beetles themselves. Another critical concept is that natural selection requires heritable variation. Traits must be passed from parents to offspring through genetic material for natural selection to influence future generations. If a trait is not heritable, such as a muscle built through exercise, it cannot be acted upon by natural selection. This distinction further underscores why individuals cannot evolve, only populations can. Natural selection can lead to different types of changes in populations depending on the environmental pressures. Let's explore a few examples. Directional selection. This occurs when one extreme of a trait is favored over the other. Consider a population of birds where individuals with longer beaks are better at accessing food. Over time, the population will shift toward having longer beaks, as these individuals have higher survival and reproductive success. Stabilizing selection. In this case, intermediate traits are favored, and extremes are selected against. For example, in human birth weights, infants of medium weight have a higher survival rate than those who are too small or too large. Over time, this stabilizing pressure reduces variation around the average trait. Disruptive selection. This occurs when both extremes of a trait are favored, and intermediate forms are selected against. Imagine a population of fish where small fish can hide in crevices, and large fish can deter predators, but medium-sized fish are too big to hide and too small to fight off predators. Over time, the population may split, with more individuals at the extremes. While natural selection is a powerful force, it is not the only mechanism of evolution. Other processes like mutation, genetic drift, and gene flow also contribute to changes in populations. However, natural selection is unique because it consistently leads to adaptation, traits that enhance an organism's fitness in its environment. One of the most famous examples of natural selection is the case of the peppered moth during the Industrial Revolution in England. Before industrialization, light-colored moths were more common, as they blended in with the lichen-covered trees, avoiding predators. However, as pollution darkened the trees, darker moths gained a survival advantage. Over time, the population shifted to include more dark-colored moths, demonstrating natural selection in action. It's also important to understand that natural selection doesn't produce perfect organisms. It works with the existing genetic variation and is constrained by historical and environmental factors. Traits that were advantageous in one environment may become less beneficial if the environment changes. For example, thick fur is advantageous for animals in cold climates but a disadvantage in warm climates. The implications of natural selection extend far beyond understanding the natural world. It helps explain the development of antibiotic resistance in bacteria as populations of bacteria evolve to survive exposure to antibiotics. Similarly, natural selection drives the evolution of pesticide-resistant pests, presenting challenges for agriculture. In conclusion, natural selection is a process that operates on individuals, but produces change at the population level. By favoring traits that increase survival and reproduction, natural selection alters the genetic makeup of populations over generations. This mechanism not only explains how populations adapt to their environments, but also reveals the interconnectedness of all living things through the shared process of evolution.